To EJH British Cars. So today we're going to work on something a little bit more fun, or at least for me, because I'm just really getting tired of grinding and welding and painting. So I got started in on the steering wheel a little bit, so I got a little bit started, and some of it's still to go, so I thought I'd show you it. So this is the wheel. This is the original wheel out of the car. I'm assuming it's been there since day one. And of course it has the trafficator signals device in the center, so this is that big hub wheel, and they're very expensive to replace. This wheel is probably the worst wheel I've ever seen that wasn't in pieces. So, I mean, not only is it weathered, but it's got these long splits here, and that gray in the back is the steel that's in the center of this. So I started in on yesterday, and there was another big one right here. So this is JB weld that I've been laying in. So I thought I'd go over today. I'd show you how to, I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but what I've seen. So I'm going to prep this and we'll JB weld that. And I'm also going to try sanding some of this because I did this yesterday, so it should be cured. So let's get started. Oh, this was a pretty big crack. And let's see, so I've been sanding it with, I think it's like maybe 80 or maybe even 50 grit paper. And I do intend to go over this with some smoother stuff later, but this wheel, the surface is so bugged up anyway, I'm not worried about scratching it. I will say that anywhere that wasn't prepped, you can actually pick the epoxy off. There's so much oil on the surface, I don't think it really stuck to it. I got started on this yesterday and I didn't start videoing, so that's why I stopped, so I can show you this one. But I want to sand these before I get this all wet, because then I won't be able to pick it up for an hour, you know. Anyway, but I thought I'd show you a little bit of this hand sanding. So I'm just supporting it on the table. This is pretty thin right here, but this goes really quick. And the epoxy seems to sand much easier than the wheel surface. So you don't have to worry about, without being, you know, just a modicum of tear, you're not really going to tear up the underside of the surface itself. But this goes pretty quickly. I've probably so far spent about a half an hour sanding on this thing, which, I mean, you know, I know half an hour sanding time is like 4 hours in the bar. But, so this is fairly heavy. There's a big crack here. Like I say, this is a JB weld, but it's the quick KWIK weld, which is supposed to be the 5-minute epoxy, because you're not really looking for a lot of strength on this. It's really just, in a way, it'd almost be using Bondo, but I think the epoxy is a little better because these wheels do flex. I mean, that's what these multi-spokes are. They're supposed to act as little shock absorbers to stop the road vibrations coming up into the wheel. So I suppose if you wanted to be fancy, you could use full strength JB weld. I don't think it'd do any harm. And what I've done on this wheel so far is, I don't even think it was half a tube. So it's not terribly expensive. Like I say, I've never done this before. I figured this wheel is so bad, you got nothing to lose by trying, because it was not usable in the condition it was in, other than to, you know, push it around the yard. So this wears out the paper pretty quickly. This was a fresh piece of paper right when we started this little section of the video. And you can see I've already gone through quite a bit of it. And I think it's because the JB weld it still feels a little soft. It's had just about a day to harden. It's probably had about 20 hours. So I did it in the afternoon yesterday. But this is a crack that's as wide as that epoxy is showing, pretty much. And that's pretty much done now. So I'm going to work on that a bit more, and then we'll we'll prep this new area. So this brown area under here is the steel rim. So there's a steel hoop here that's attached to these, welded to these. And the surface of that's kind of rusty. This is where the wheel was sitting in the sun the most. So I'm just using a wire brush in there. And you don't want to use a greasy wire brush. Use something relatively clean. Something just to break that surface up. And then the other thing I've been doing is just taking some, this is 120 grit sandpaper, and I've been doing the surface area around it. I've got a lot of other little surface cracks here. These are turning white just from the dust from sanding. That's surface cracking, and then this is surface wrinkling. I don't know. It's not. It's the very top of the. These cracks probably go all the way down to the steel. These bigger ones that you can put your fingernail in. But there's also just these hair cracks along the top, which are like surface cracks, which we'll clean those out and put a little putty on those too. And then I'm going to use some air. I want to try to get all the dust out of the bottom of the cracks. You can see that's where those white cracks were before. You can see that all that just blew right out of there. This is grease and wax remover. It's what you use on a car before you paint, particularly if it's had silicone-based paints. So I like to use this to wipe stuff down because it really seems to do a good job of cleaning, and it evaporates off pretty quick. And it's designed to work with the paint. So I'm going to paint all this eventually as well. Stuff's fairly expensive, but I really don't like to be too stingy with it. And you can see that really cleaned it up nice. And this is drying off there. You can see it's starting to turn gray. I'll go get some epoxy and see if we can't fill up some more spots. So I've mixed up my JB weld. Got that clean. This is just a regular auto body spatula like you use for Bondo or something. You want to really try to push it down into those, deep into the cracks. So you really want this to go all the way down to the steel. If I'd had they make like rubber ones of these, and it would probably do this a little better, but I don't have one handy, so I'm using what I got. So that's the big crack. And the little cracks, I really try to work it in there as best I can. I'm also doing these areas with just the light surface cracking to try to put some material back in there. So I ran out of epoxy. I'll have to make some more, but this is that big crack. You can see we filled it right up. Also seem to have managed to find some red paint that's not dry. So I'm going to make up a bit more and get it in there. So that's had about a half an hour to cure. See if we can sand it. Well, it's definitely softer than the stuff that sat all night, but it's not bad. Softer, not necessarily a bad thing for at least trying to clean this up. And you can see there's another big crack. I need to sand a bit more, but I don't want to bore you guys to death. Why should you watch somebody sanding when you could be out sanding on your own car? There. So this is one of those longer, deep cracks. Like I said, I'm just doing this really quick right now. Basically just sand it down until there's nothing but the crack left showing. In the surface. This is not like, it's not like where you're going to be painting and you're going to see some little undulation on the surface if you don't get everything dead smooth. Anyway, I'm going to sand some more on this and then I'll let you see it. So this is that big crack on the top that we cleaned out. So see, this epoxy shrank a little bit. I'm not sure it's full all the way, but we will see. Well, there's that big crack. It actually looks pretty good. There's a little tiny spot there where the sandpaper didn't quite touch, but I don't think that's really going to matter. I have been sanding because when you have the cracks, the ends tend to lip up a little bit, so I've been sanding on the edges a little bit to get it round again, and that took care of most of that slight depression. Like that. So, here we go. Start at this spoke. There's a big crack through here filled up, and then a radial crack, cracked edge, more line cracks, another radial crack, and there's some more of there's a really long crack there. That's not the one we just fixed. And some little surface cracks. There's some more cracking there. This was messed up a little bit more. I probably will sand on that just a little bit more to get it nice and smooth. But overall, that's not bad. There's a little bit of raw epoxy there I've missed. I'll have to go back and do that. But that's not bad. So I'm going to, this is some 120 paper. I'm going to 120 it all. And then I got some Scotch-Brite. I'll do that. And then I think I have some black plastic vinyl paint used on interiors. I might try shooting it with that. So I'll obviously tape off the chrome spokes, and then the center. I got some satin black. I don't think this should really be gloss. And I'll sand this down a little bit too. It's pretty grungy. So I was digging through the paint cabinet and I found bumper coating. So it's for black bumpers. So that seemed like it'd probably be a pretty good thing. This is Duplicolor. F for Fred, B for boy, 105 flex black bumper, BLK bumper. No idea where I got this from, but I thought I'd give it a try. And as you can see, got the wheel taped up. I'm gonna shoot some paint on it. There's the wheel finished up. That paint is still a bit wet, I think, so it won't be quite this shiny when it's done. But considering how horrible this wheel looked, I think that's pretty remarkable. And then of course we'll paint the center later, but I'll paint that with this regular metal paint. So this bumper paint goes on very thin, so those two pretty heavy coats on there. I can see a few sander marks, but it's just not that big a deal. I may give it one more coat later. Hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, and we'll see you next time.